Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Lawlor. I'm a state legislator from East Haven and co-chair of the Judiciary Committee, and I'm joined by several of my colleagues who will introduce themselves at the appropriate time. I think most of you know them. Obviously, the reason we're here, and I'm sure you're aware, is that many of us are extremely concerned about what transpired here in Hartford last Wednesday afternoon when a guy whom I think almost all of us know, Ken Krajewski, was taken into custody apparently by the Hartford police with the participation, according to the police report, of the state police, and charged apparently with breach of peace and interfering with a police officer. The concern that we have is why was this person arrested? And it turns out from the reports compiled by the police and the media reports that apparently in collaboration with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, the Connecticut State Police and the Hartford Police had compiled apparently a list, at least for the one day, the day of the inauguration, of persons who they felt posed a, quote, threat, unquote, to the governor. In passing, you know, I know Ken Krajewski. I've had an opportunity to talk to him a number of times. I read his stuff on the blogs for a long time, and I think like many of us, he's an opinionated man who is interested in politics, but I don't think he's ever engaged in any conduct which would make him a threat to anybody. Apparently, the news reports indicate that the police were, their attention was drawn to two particular comments posted on the internet, on blogs, one of which was held out as the reason where they felt that he had, quote, threatened, unquote, the governor. This was posted on a blog site called Connecticut Local Politics, which many of us consult every day, and it is his post says in part, "Who's going to protest the inaugural ball January 3rd with me? No need to make nice after watching this documentary about CJTS," which is the Connecticut Juvenile Training School. That apparently was interpreted by at least somebody in law enforcement as a threat, and as a consequence, apparently he was taken into custody. The police report, courtesy of the Hartford Courant, was made available online. It's the magic of the world we live in, and on, I guess it was Friday morning, I and many others got the opportunity to read the police report, and you know, I used to be a prosecutor. I teach criminal law. I have a lot of friends who are lawyers and prosecutors, and to a person, nobody outside the system feels that there's probable cause in that report to charge someone with any crime, let alone breach of peace or interfering with a police officer. Beyond that, the facts which became clear later on over the weekend through postings from Mr. Krajewski and others was that the official version of the police, as recited in the police report, appears to be at variance with the facts that are clearly documented. For example, the police report implies that Mr. Krajewski was riding his mountain bike and speedily in the direction of where the governor was marching, and suddenly sort of dismounted from his mountain bike, which if you're an experienced mountain bike rider, you know how to do that. You just drop it and keep going, and ran in the direction of the governor and started taking photographs. And it was that that prompted the reaction both of a Hartford police officer and a Connecticut state trooper. Implicitly in that report is a sense that he's going towards the governor and they stopped him. However, what's been reported is Mr. Krajewski's version is that he was simply standing on a median in the center of the street, taking photographs of the parade approaching for some period of time, and at some point the police came up to him and took him into custody. Apparently he was walking back to the sidewalk. And he has posted several photographs from that particular vantage point, and one of them, you know, we have reproduced here. You have copies of it. This is a very ordinary journalistic type photograph of the governor walking in a parade, a very complimentary photograph, I should say, of the governor. It's very normal in all respects, doesn't appear to be embarrassing in any way. And that was the last photograph apparently he took prior to being taken into custody by the police. Earlier photographs on that same series show the governor marching several units behind and approaching where Mr. Krajewski was apparently standing in the same exact spot where the last photo was taken, which seems to indicate that he was standing there for a period of time, at least several minutes, taking photos of the parade coming along, and it was for that that he was arrested. Now, where you find the breach of peace in there, I couldn't tell you. But apparently, the police felt that that was an appropriate charge. In their report, they say when one of the officers put his hand on Mr. Krafsky, he pulled away, which I guess is almost an understandable reaction, and for that he was charged with interfering with a police officer, which is usually reserved for someone putting up a fight, not this reaction. Now, they knew who Mr. Krafsky was. This wasn't some random person. They apparently had been briefed by the FBI and others about him, and so they knew he was a journalist. They knew he was a blogger. Apparently, their criteria was he had been arrested in the past for civil disobedience, and he was a critic of the governor. Well, if those are the criteria, I know I should be on that list, and I think Chris should be on the list. I don't know if you've ever been arrested for civil disobedience, Denise, but you know, that's not an unusual thing for people who have strong political views. It's not the profile of an assassin or someone who's going to attack an elected official. Now, to her credit, the governor issued a statement a short while ago asking for a full investigation of this. And I know I and other legislators have spoken with other state officials this morning to ask for a complete explanation of what's taken place here. But the bottom line is this type of conduct, which I guess you could categorize as Bushist, for a want of a better expression in this day and age, will not be tolerated in this state. People who attempt to harass and intimidate journalists and other political activists will not be tolerated, and there is no excuse for it. This is a free country. Mr. Krafsky, at every step of the process, was acting well within his constitutional rights as a citizen and as a journalist, and there are two different provisions of the state and federal constitutions that cover that, and the police have no business arresting somebody, charging with a crime. Not only did they do that, he was detained for 13 hours at both the Hartford Police Department and the lockup on Lafayette Street. The police set a $75,000 bond for Mr. Krafsky, I'm told, for breach of peace, which is a misdemeanor. And he was held until 1 o'clock in the morning. And it leads to the question, you know, was someone trying to make sure there's no way he could demonstrate in front of the governor's inauguration, which he has every constitutional right to do at the inaugural ball? These are questions that demand answers. And I think you can tell from the tone of my voice, and I'm sure you hear my colleagues, this is very upsetting to people who feel very strongly about people's political rights. And it's not the first time in this state that people have crossed the boundary of acceptable activity by state officials. And I'm sure it probably won't be the last time, but I think the message should be loud and clear today. And I just want to bore you with one fact to give you some insight into why I feel so strongly about this. In 1980, in March of 1980, I was arrested and incarcerated for almost 13 hours for taking photographs in a situation that at the time was perfectly legal. I knew what the law was. I was taking photos of people standing in a meat line. But this was in Gdańsk, Poland, and it was during martial law. And I told the police officer who arrested me that I had every right to do it because I had the list of what you're allowed to do. And he said, I don't care. I'm arresting you. You can explain to somebody else later on. And that, in part, was the inspiration why I took an interest in criminal law, because I was very proud to live in a free country where that type of conduct by police is not tolerated. And here in 2006, I can say, on behalf of my colleague, Andrew McDonald, the co-chair of the Judiciary Committee, that we will make sure that the message is loud and clear emerging over the next few weeks and months, that this will not be tolerated in our state. Denise?
Thanks, Michael.